Hello and welcome to another video of the restoration of 7076, the Hymek. So the parts we have here today are probably not known to many enthusiasts, but these are decompression valves which feature on each of our Maybach engined locomotives. So here you have the port on the cylinder side and an exit port on the top and on the side here. To operate the valve, you remove the locking collar like this and open the needle valve using a special Maybach tool. So with the engine decompressed, we can bar it over manually, which we'll talk about a little bit more later in the video. In addition to the side of this would be a blanking block, which is used on the Loco application. In the marine application of this engine, compressed air would commonly be injected at this point to turn the engine over for starting. As we don't use this on the Locos, we have a blanking block. As this is a Hymek using the MD870 engine, there are 16 decompression valves and 16 blanks. Each one was in a very poor state, so they've all been wire wheeled back to bare metal and cleaned to ensure a nice surface, and these will all be fully painted, ready to go back on the engine. Quite a simple construction, which is just a little needle valve, which you can see being unscrewed here, which acts upon a seat within the actual main body, a locking collar, a spring, and as you can see, the main body here. Custom Maybach tool presses against this ring to disengage the spline off the valve, and this turns the valve to open or closed. Someone back in the factory had the painstaking job of stamping each of these components with a Maybach part number. As you can see here, it was well worth taking these components apart to give them a good clean, as quite a number of them put a good fight up as they got some water in the actual decompression valve and was seized up solid. Here you can see it's all nicely cleaned up, giving hopefully many years of service. Once everything had been degreased and cleaned up, everything received a good coating of red oxide paint. These are allowed to dry and cure hard over the next couple of days. As you can imagine, painting these took quite some time, as there were 16 valve bodies, 16 springs, 16 locking rings, 16 valve spindles, and also 16 blanking blocks. Also, new joints were made for all these components and silver paint has been applied. Here we have the actual components going back on and a little time lapse of me installing them all. As mentioned earlier in the video, this is the custom Maybach tool, which you can see is splined and has two notches to which marries up with the decompression valve. So as you can see, the decompression tool engages with the valve spindle, presses the locking ring out of place, and you can unscrew the valve to allow you to decompress the engine. So this is done on each cylinder, and trust me from experience, you know when you've forgotten one, as you are literally fighting the compression of the engine. So in addition to this tool, we also have the barring over tool, which is a bar with a chain around it, which we tie around the flywheel and manually turn the engine over to ensure there's no tight spots and that the engine turns freely. So So you can see here how the tool pinches onto the actual flywheel and allowing us to turn the engine manually. We do this every time the Loco is due out for service as part of the service check. At least 2 full revolutions are carried out on the engine, and you're feeling for any tight spots or any binding which could catastrophically ruin the engine. This doesn't take too long, and it's always nice to hear the engine actually breathing a little bit. So hopefully this little video has given you a little bit of an insight of what we do and what components you might not have known about, or what goes into service checking a Maybach engine. Thank you very much for watching and for your continued support on our Locos. I hope you found it informative on some components you might not have really heard of before, and just to let you know that plans are in place to get this engine lifted back into the Loco. But until then, stay tuned and thank you again for your support.